Welcome to this meeting of Council. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the voices and images of those participating in the meeting may be captured as part of this recording. Indigo Shire Council acknowledges the original custodians of these lands. The people of the rivers and the hills have walked these lands for thousands of years as well as today, and we pay respect to the elders of the past and present. As councillors, we have all taken an oath to carry out our duties in the best interests of the people of Indigo Shire and to do this in a fair and impartial manner. We are all committed to exercising the council's powers and functions to the best of our skills and judgment. Do we have any apologies or leaves of absence? CEO, I know we've got the governance coordinator, Annabelle Harding, as an apology, with Carla Hanlon in her place tonight. Do we have any conflicts of interest with the agenda tonight? Councillor Shepherd?
I don't have one with the agenda, but I note there are a number of questions about the childcare, and I have a material conflict of interest because a close family member is a member of the Beechworth Community Early Years Learning Centre. So I will leave during that discussion on the questions.
And if that comes up in any other item
and if it comes up in any other item, yep.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Horn.
Yes, so I also have to declare a conflict of interest, and I'll need to briefly state that I have a general conflict of interest at item 12.5 by saying that I have a general conflict of interest at this item because I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Rutherglen Committee that is proposed recipient of a grant. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Are there any other conflicts of interest with tonight's agenda? No. We have a proposed late agenda item, CEO.
Madam Mayor, with the permission of council, I'd like to introduce a late agenda item being a planning permit application, planning permit application PP 240085 in regards to 53 Barclay Street, Rutherglen. If council accepts that item, we would propose it at item 11.3 at the end of the planning directorate section, if that's okay. And for an explanation about the circumstances as to why we would think this should be accepted as a late item, I wouldn't mind throwing to Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. This is a return of an item from the previous month, and with the election period coming up, we're trying to get all of the planning applications through. We weren't too sure if this would make it. It didn't quite make the official agenda, but it was ready a day or two later. So we're proposing it be a late item.
Thank you, Director. So the recommendation, councillors, is that a late agenda item for planning permit application PP 240085 for 53 Barclay Street, Rutherglen be added to the agenda under section 11 of the Planning and Corporate Services. Do I have somebody to move that?
Just a question. That's right, Madam Mayor.
Yep, Councillor.
Why was this item pulled from the August council agenda?
Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
Yeah, so the item was originally listed as a development plan, and then just before the meeting, it was clarified that the applicant wanted it to be the development plan and the subdivision. And so the report that had previously come to council wasn't covering both of those, and we just needed to withdraw it, confirm exactly the situation, and now we have. The report's been updated to include both the development plan and the subdivision.
Thank you, Director. Okay, so can I get somebody to move that recommendation? Moved Councillor Gold, seconded Councillor Tysell. I don't think we need to move it, speak to it. It's procedural. So all those in favour? Carried unanimously. So that item has been added to the agenda under section 11 for Planning and Corporate Services. We'll move now to the open forum. So, Councillor Shepherd, you've got a conflict of interest with some of the questions. We'll start with those and we'll welcome you back in at the completion of those questions. Okay, so we've got, similar to the previous meeting, we've got 5 sets of questions, similar in nature in regard to the Beechworth Kindergarten and childcare item that was on the August council meeting agenda. So we've got another 15 questions to read out. We propose to do it in the same way that we did at the August council meeting, which is to read each of the questions and then hear a statement from the Director of Community and Economic Development. And we want to be clear that that is within the guidelines of what can be done with the open forum. It's just a useful method for us to make sure that you do hear your questions read. You'll get an answer from the Director of Community and Economic Development. And I'm also aware that you're in quite regular contact with both the current tenants of that site. So I'll begin by asking the questions from Avril Heller. Do we have Avril in the audience? You're her proxy. Thank you. Okay, first question. The integrity of some of the data noted within the EOI is questionable and should be verified. Has council undertaken due diligence to ensure that all information noted is correct and can be made available to the public? Question 2. Beechworth Kindergarten was advised in April of the council's intention to pursue a single occupancy agreement from 2026 onwards. However, there was no consultation with the service prior to this. Equally, post initial correspondence with the relevant person overseeing the proposal, Beechworth Kindergarten was largely unable to get any engagement from council as the said employee was on extended leave until August and then resigned. In his absence, representatives of Beechworth Kindergarten spoke with Mark DeCampo, who indicated that he was not close enough to the proposal to answer our questions and suggested they wait for the project owner to return. How could such a proposal be put forward and approved when engagement with one of the primary stakeholders had been so minimal and the potential impact to the business's future viability is so great? Also, when is it clear that the council representatives now leading the initiative do not fully understand the implications associated with it? Question 3. Beechworth Kindergarten has discussed this proposal at length with the Department of Education, and they too have questioned the benefit of this EOI for single occupancy. Originally, they did not indicate their support for participation in the EOI process. However, as per my previous question, we now know that Beechworth Kindergarten is not eligible. To that end, we have been exploring with DE other potential locations from which to operate out of without success. Any new location will require a minimum of 3 years to receive approval and certification from the VSBADE, and equally co-location at Beechworth Primary School with a modular building under the state government's new strategy is not possible, even though BPS supports the proposal at a high level, because under the Kindergarten Infrastructure and Services Plan, KISP, Beechworth still has kinder capacity across the 3 services operating. In brief, it is simply not feasible for Beechworth Kindergarten to relocate to a new premises with the current lease's remaining term. If we are not able to participate in the EOI to remain at the current site, this will mean that Beechworth Kindergarten will be forced to cease operation beyond 2025. How can council in good conscience allow this to happen to the town's oldest and largest kinder provider? We are an essential service to the community and should be shown support from council, not be pushed out the door quite literally. So those are the 3 questions from Avril. The next set of questions are from Kayla Collier, and I can confirm Kayla's in the gallery. The pre-prep rollout, which replaces current 4-year-old kindergarten, starts in the Indigo Shire in 2027. This means more funded hours for our children the year before they start their primary school journey. Our family lives in Beechworth, and my son will begin his kindergarten journey in 2027 and be eligible for more hours of funded pre-prep by 2028, according to the rollout guide. We, like many others in Beechworth, have a preference for sessional kindergarten education that is not Montessori focused. How can we ensure sessional kindergarten is protected within Beechworth in this EOI process for families like mine, so we don't have to travel to towns like Yakandanda for this type of education for our children? Sessional kindergarten offerings are not generally a profitable business model. Therefore, it is a very real possibility that Beechworth could lose this essential choice for their families, and I am concerned about this as a mother and as a community member. 2. In 2024, Beechworth Kindergarten operates at approximately 80% utilisation rate within its sessional hours. In 2025, after consultation with our families, our service will be expanding our hours further to support working families, thereby increasing utilisation further. And finally, based on current enrolment numbers, we do not have sufficient capacity to support the rollout of pre-prep in 2027. This is a concern we have been attempting to address in our forward planning. Childcare is already at capacity, given that both services are under pressure already. How can it be suggested that this proposal will provide any long-term sustainable improvements to utilisation of the premises when the floor space remains the same and therefore the number of children who fit in this space is unlikely to have any major increases? Would it not be a better option to give the current Beechworth family-run services more time in the current building while helping Beechworth Kindergarten to relocate and then allowing the childcare to occupy the full building? Question 3. The Beechworth community has made it clear that they believe it's important to keep the different offerings for early childhood education available to those who live here and young families who may wish to move here in the future. How can this EOI process benefit the community when it has the potential to push out 2 successful Beechworth family-run education and care services when the possibility of a big city company taking over the lease of the building? The next 3 questions are from Will Collier, and I can confirm Will's in the gallery. Can you please explain how the EOI process will address the current wait list for children aged 0 to 3 when the building is already almost at capacity and will be at capacity in 2027 with the current leaseholders? 2, if one or both current leaseholders are unsuccessful, where will the children from that service go? Will they be guaranteed a space? And 3, can you please outline the advice the Indigo Shire has sought from the Department of Education regarding this proposal? How will this proposal support the rollout of pre-prep in line with department advice for more places for children aged 4 to 5? Peter Sprunt. Thank you, Peter. The first question is, currently the government-funded sessional kindergarten offers places for vulnerable members of the community. This group includes people who identify as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, refugees or asylum seekers, and those who have had contact with child protection. As part of the sessional kindergarten program, these families are offered support or are linked in with other services that are identified. Will this much needed support continue if Beechworth sessional kindergarten ceases? Second question, the Victorian government has shown the importance of sessional kindergarten due to their long-term financial commitment to build new and upgraded sessional kindergartens. Why is there no mention in the EOI for sessional kindergarten to be a priority and to continue in Beechworth? Does Indigo Shire believe that families deserve to have this choice? Question 3, 1 year is not enough time to relocate. With council support and additional time for relocation, this will open up more childcare places and will give Beechworth Kindergarten time to build a new facility that will better support all families into the future. Can council come together to allow and support this process to happen? And the final set of questions on this issue is from Liana Beetson, and I can confirm Liana's in the gallery. 1, as a volunteer-run, non-for-profit community service, I have considerable concern around many of the constraints for Beechworth Kindergarten within the EOI for occupancy of Beechworth Early Years Facility at Mayday Hills, particularly in regards to the annual rent payable and maintenance. I feel that many of the occupancy terms have already put Beechworth Kindergarten on the back foot as a genuine non-for-profit entity. What they could offer for rent is going to be substantially less than what a profit service could pay. The EOI process appears to be a rapacious approach, with council forfeiting financial responsibility in terms of supporting early years education in Beechworth. As mentioned, but not minuted in the August meeting, how does council intend on doing everything it could to find alternate arrangements as quickly as possible for the current tenant not successful in securing the EOI? 2, we are incredibly lucky in Beechworth to have 3 amazing choices for our kindergarten age children. with Beechworth Early Years Learning Centre offering as part of long day care, Montessori offering as part of their Cycle 1, and Beechworth Kindergarten offering a sessional program. We know that there is no one-size-fits-all rule when it comes to education. Different offerings give our families the choice to make a well-informed decision for what's in the best interest of their children. While no option is better than another for all families within our town, one option will suit a particular family better than another. Other than reducing the wait list for childcare, how else would it benefit our town to potentially lose the sessional kindergarten option, which currently suits the greatest number of families in Beechworth when taking current enrolment numbers into account? And the third question, with 600 signatures amassed on a petition of support, Beechworth Kindergarten is clearly a valued community asset and a strong education choice for families of our community. How is Indigo Shire Council going to ensure that a sessional kindergarten option continues and exists within the Beechworth community? So those are all 5 sets of questions on that issue, all 15 questions, and I'll now go to the Director of Community and Economic Development, Sally Rice, to give us a snapshot of as best she can some of the answers to those questions.
Thanks, and through you, Mayor Price. So I will read this statement and then I will respond to each of the questions that we received following today's meeting in the coming days. So Council has now formally begun the expression of interest process that Council resolved to undertake at its August meeting. This current expression of interest process is happening because the existing occupancy agreements are due to expire. Therefore, Council needs to undertake a transparent process to identify the occupants for the next term. Council regularly undertakes expression of interest processes. They are a clear and transparent method to occupy and activate public assets. Council uses public, open and transparent processes to invite parties to express their interest in occupying council buildings, ensuring the greatest outcome for the community. This expression of interest is seeking proposals from the entire sector. Rather than being prescriptive, the expression of interest is designed to allow interested parties to describe their proposal, including detailing the services to be delivered, the operational model, and how the facility will be used and benefit the community. Council is seeking expressions of interest from a provider that is responsible for overall service planning and delivery for the entire site. This will not preclude the possibility of multiple entities forming a partnership or consortium to provide a range of services from the site. Collaborative expressions of interest in this form will be welcomed, provided there is an overarching governance structure and single point of contact for the entire site. Both of the current occupants are encouraged to participate in the expression of interest. The assessment criteria are designed to prioritise benefit to the community and meeting community need. Council understands that a variety of service offerings is important. The expression of interest is clearly seeking the provision of a kindergarten and both short and long day childcare, and the provision of these services will be considered when evaluating the submissions. The Department of Education and Training is supportive of the EOI process, and that includes the expression of interest documents and criteria. In relation to the current occupants, Council has kept both current occupants and the Department of Education and Training informed about the intention to conduct an expression of interest process. The current occupants have also been communicated with about the extension of their current occupancy agreements until December 2025. Beyond that, as the expression of interest process is competitive, it would be inappropriate for Council to involve a prospective interested party in the design of the process. The expression of interest has been developed in-house by Council staff and is based on their expert knowledge, consultation with the Department of Education and informed by the recent Perkins and Community Vibe reports. The expression of interest specifically seeks evidence of experience and at least 2 business references. Also within the criteria, the expression of interest is seeking community benefit. Therefore, there is ample opportunity within the expression of interest process for local providers, including the current occupants, to highlight their unique local attributes. The expression of interest does request that applicants indicate their expectation regarding rental payments. This expression of interest requirement is requested for information and it is not one of the weighted criteria and will not be used to influence the assessment panel's recommendation. Council will support a peppercorn rent applying to any community group and or not-for-profit that may be successful. Commercial tenants would be charged rent at market value. In regard to maintenance, the obligations described in the expression of interest are the same as the current existing arrangements. The data used in the expression of interest is from the Perkins report, which is publicly available on Council's website. The Department of Education and Training reviewed the expression of interest documents and made no suggestions for change. After the expression of interest process, Council will not be preemptive of the outcome of the expression of interest process, but having said that, Council is well aware of how critical early years services are to the community. Council also acknowledges it has a role to play in early years service provision through such things as infrastructure planning and development and advocating for children's services and early years strategies. We agree that future planning, including to accommodate the increased hours of funded pre-prep, will need to continue, and Council works with the Department of Education and Training on this. In the event that one or both of the current occupants are not successful in the expression of interest process, Council would strongly encourage the new occupants to honour both current and future enrolments. Also, in this scenario, if either or both of the current occupants approached Council seeking support for any reason, including a possible relocation, Council would do what it can to provide assistance appropriate to the request. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. So those are all the questions on that item, and that's the answer that we can provide. At this point, I'll ask someone to get Councillor Shepherd back into the meeting, please. The next set of questions is submitted by Robin Pfeiffer and to be represented by proxy Peter Twigg, but we have both Robin Pfeiffer and proxy Peter Twigg here tonight, so I can confirm they're in the audience, in the gallery. The first question, following a letter to the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action outlining our concerns for the proposed and inappropriate development of a 24-hour service station truck stop on the corner of the Murray Valley Highway and Federation Way, Rutherglen, the Friends of Lake Moodamere received the following response from Claire Keeley, DECA Regional Director Hume. I've spoken to Trevor Areno, CEO of Indigo Shire, about your concerns, and he noted that you have also been in touch with them. As you will be aware, the planning and permit process for developments is a Shire responsibility, and as such, DECA provides advice to the Council. So thank you for raising your concerns, and I urge you to work closely with the Council to understand how they are being addressed. Question. What we want to know is how Council plans to address our concerns when we have had no communication from the CEO, Trevor Areno. So I'll direct that question to the Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
Hi, Robin. Thanks for your question. I'll top and tail these three questions with the same suggestion. I think we should have a chat. The planning process is something that a lot of people find as being a little bit opaque, hard to engage with. So if you're interested, I'd love to have a chat and run through it in more depth than I can tonight. So I'll answer the questions and you'll probably have more questions after that. So the first question relates to a letter that you've sent to DECA. And I'm assuming that the same issues have been raised in a submission to Council. If not, can you please make sure that you send that through to us so that we can register that? As far as the answers, all submissions will be considered as part of the planning process, and the relevant planning issues will be reflected in the report that comes to Council for the decision. So that report will cover those issues. And in addition to that, before it comes to Council, we'll hold a focus meeting, which is a meeting where the applicant and the submitters can come together and talk about the planning issues. So I would imagine that would cover probably most of what you're talking about there.
The second question, at the Indigo Shire Council meeting on the 25th of June 2024, Peter Twigg asked if the applicant for the 24-hour service station truck stop would be required to provide environmental impact statements. Council's response was that they would refer the application to the statutory authorities and specifically reference both the CMA and DECA. Question, when will Council make public the advice received from CMA, DECA and other statutory authorities that assists Council in assessing the application? Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
Similar answer. So the report that goes to council has information about the referral authorities. That's one of the really core parts of the planning report. And again, I would imagine that that would come up in the focus meeting, particularly probably the matters that you're interested in. We'd go through there.
And the third question, on the 3rd of June 2024, Mayor Sophie Price, Councillors Gaffney, Tysell, Horn and Shepherd met on the proposed site for the 24-hour service station truck stop with the Friends of Lake Mudamere group. Our group was advised to contact the relevant statutory authorities to detail our objections to the application and ask for their support. All the statutory authorities have been contacted by the Friends of Lake Mudamere and each statutory authority has referred us back to Council. Question, why were we directed to do this when the final decision rests with Council and our elected representatives? The Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
So in a planning process, council runs the process and brings to the table a certain expertise, but then there's other expertise in electricity and catchment management and sewers and that sort of thing, which is not a council gig. That's something that we get the referral authorities to provide their expertise in. So if you want to talk about any of those subjects, council's not the best place to have those conversations. The subject matter experts are. And it's a fine line, but if you want to make a submission about those, if you want to find out more, then they're the best people to talk to. If you want to make a submission to the planning process, then council is the one. So it's splitting hairs a little bit, but it's quite important how that happens. I kind of get the frustration you're bouncing around a little bit. And again, I would really strongly recommend that we set aside a bit of time, go through the process and just make sure that, we can fully understand exactly how this process runs and how best to engage in it and where we can help you stop getting bumped around a bit. So get in touch if you're interested in that.
Thank you. The next question is from Charlie Mitchell. Yep, I can confirm Charlie's in the gallery. The background. In August, the councillors and the CEO announced the outstanding achievement of 100% completion of the Capital Works program. This claim appears inconsistent with the council's identification of over $11 million in unspent carryover funds for the 2024-25 budget. The originally adopted budget, developed in consultation with the community, is the budget. It serves as the only benchmark for reporting by the Victorian Auditor General's Office. Council is required to comply with sections 95 and 96 of the Local Government Act 2020 if it wishes to adopt a revised budget, if it intends to adjust the budget and use this as a benchmark. However, no such revision was undertaken in the 2023-24 fiscal year. Question, could the CEO please clarify how the council can assert that it achieved the 100% completion of its 2023-24 Capital Works program against the original budget, while simultaneously carrying over 64% of uncompleted projects amounting to millions of dollars? This apparent inconsistency raises concerns about the accuracy and validity of the council's statements to the community. The Director of Infrastructure Services, Ian Ellett.
Thanks, Charles, for your question. So you've referenced sections 95 and 96 of the Local Government Act in relation to a revised budget. Council did not adopt a revised budget. Section 97 of the Act requires Council to be presented with quarterly budget reports after the end of each quarter. In accordance with Section 97, Council received a report at the March meeting, which presented forecast figures for both the operating and capital budgets. In considering this report, Council accepted the presented financial figures and directed the CEO to report against the forecast figures for the remainder of the financial year. Hence, the CEO's comments about the completion rate of the capital works program was measured against the forecast expenditure of around $12.9 million, as it is every year.
Thank you, Director. That brings us to the end of open forum. We'll now move to item 6, community and council achievements. Do any councillors have any community or council achievement they wish to raise with the meeting? No. Item 7 is condolences. Do any councillors have any condolence motions to raise with the meeting tonight? No. Item 8 is confirmation of minutes from previous meetings. The recommendation is that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 27th of August 2024, as published on council's website, be confirmed. Can I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Gold, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Gold, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. Yes. I think there was a question raised for councillors around the nature of the minutes and an inclusion of a particular statement made during the meeting. I think it's just important to clarify for the public record that all meetings are recorded and remain available to the public. If anybody wanted to go back to the detail, they are welcome and always available to do so. I think it's also important to state that our minutes are not Hansard. They are not prescriptive. We don't record debate for agenda items, and nor do we cherry pick what we include or what we don't. The detail is in the recordings, and the minutes themselves focus on the resolutions and the actions. I think it's important just to be clear the distinction between the use of our minutes as an overarching summary of the detail that we then carry forward in terms of noting any statements that may have been made within the meeting. Then those truths are acknowledged and can be actioned accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yeah, just to agree with what Councillor has said, that our minutes aren't recorded per se in Hansard, but everything is recorded and is available online 24/7 after the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gold, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 9 is business arising from previous minutes, and that goes over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7.5 pages with responses to questions that might have been taken on notice at the last meeting. Item 10 is petitions, and item 10.1 is Save Lake Moodamere Say No to 24/7 Roadhouse Service Centre next to Conservation Reserve. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 receives the document titled Save Lake Moodamere Say No to 24/7 Roadhouse Service Centre next to Conservation Reserve. 2, notes the document does not comply with the petition requirements under clause 39B of Indigo Shire Council's governance rules. 3, accepts and notes the sentiment of the submitters. And 4, gives further due consideration to the document as a submission when it is provided again to councillors as part of the planning assessment documents prior to council making a decision at a future meeting. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Tyson, seconded Councillor Gold. Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that the sentiment is felt by council from those who took the time out to fill in the petition, and that it will be included in any submissions to council later on if there is any planning permits.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Councillor Gold, would you like to speak as seconder?
Thank you. I think it's just a really important opportunity to reflect on both council's interest in hearing from community and hence the willingness to accept this petition, even though it doesn't fulfil all of the exact requirements of our governance policy. And I think for anybody that's interested, just to recognise that when people sign a petition, that names, addresses, emails are required as a way of verifying the applicants. And we appreciate, the signatories. And we appreciate in this instance that people have signed this petition from all walks of the country and beyond, and it would not be a reasonable expectation for people who have all organised this petition to go back and contact all those people again, if in fact they were even able to do so. But do encourage people in the future to look to the standards for petitions so that we, if need be, people aren't precluded from that petition being received.
Thank you, councillor Gold. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Shepherd?
I just wanted to note that it would make no difference really in the response of the council if it was compliant at the moment, because it's an issue that's coming before council later on, a planning issue. So we could not require the CEO to respond or make to do anything about it anyway. So it's really, it'll be noted, same as the petition, a valid petition would be. So I still think it's a really obvious sign to us what those 1,600 people feel about that. So even though next time it'd be great to get get the regulations right, it would make no difference in this space. So yeah.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor Horn?
Yes, there's a great deal of passion about this interest, and it gets very frustrating sometimes when people put petitions together, particularly with the electronic forms that are available, the service that they provide and what's actually required by the local government or all levels of government, in fact. And I think the fact that we are also a border community complicates that when it gets to other levels of government, because it has to be only Victorian people with state issues. And these should have been Indigo Shire residents signing this petition. So lots of things to look out for and be aware of in the future to make it more effective.
Thank you, councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tyson, would you like to sum up?
It's great to see that so many people care about our environment and the significance of Lake Moodamin.
Thank you, councillor Tyson. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11 is Planning and Corporate Services, and item 11.1 is the August 2024 Finance Report. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council accepts the August 2024 Finance Report. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved councillor Gaffney, seconded councillor Croucher. Councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Local Government Act requires council to give financial information quarterly. Indigo Shire provides a monthly statement and a more comprehensive reports quarterly. The result for August is in line with the financial forecast.
Thank you, councillor Gaffney. Councillor Croucher.
Yeah, just to comment further to that, the overall result for August is still in line with the forecast. In fact, the second month of the financial year is showing a favourable result compared with council's YTD budget.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
I'd just like to ask a quick question, please, of Greg Pinkerton, our Director of Planning and Corporate Services. Greg, on the August 2024 income statement, there's a rather startling 434% difference in the year-to-date variance on contributions operating. Could you just quickly explain why that number looks so amazing?
Yeah, thank you. It's nice when numbers look positive. So that variance is it's 434, which is percent, which is driven by a favourable variance of $65,000. That's due to an unbudgeted contribution for funding for the emergency management area for the project Building Resilience within the Northeast Collaboration. That's about all the details I know, but that's yeah. So grant funded. When we do the budget, we don't know of all of the grant successes that we're going to have. And so this has come in after the budget has been produced, and that will be matched with expenditure. So it's a positive variance now when we get the grant in, and then throughout the year we'll spend money against that grant line.
You can't break out the champagne.
No. Well, good that we got the grant.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. For the benefit of anyone in the gallery, if you're more than welcome to stay for the until the end of the meeting, but if your item has been discussed, you're more than welcome to leave at any time as well. Item 11.2 is the in-principle adoption of Council's annual performance statement and financial statements. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council, 1, pursuant to Part 4, Division 3, 99(2) of the Local Government Act 2020, approves in principle the 2023-24 financial statements and performance statement, and 2, nominates in accordance with Part 4, Division 3, 99(3) of the Local Government Act 2020, 3 councillors being Mayor Price, Councillor Gaffney, and Councillor Croucher as signatories, with the authorisation given for any 2 of the nominated 3 councillors to certify the 2023-24 performance statement and financial statements, along with the CEO and the Principal Accounting Officer, in their final form after any changes recommended or agreed to by the auditor have been made. Could I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Gaffney, seconded Councillor Croucher. Councillor Gaffney.
The review of the draft statements will be done by the auditor and will be included in Council's annual report.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Councillor Croucher, would you like to speak as seconder?
I just think it's summarised in the conclusion. The attached statements now ready for council for consideration and in principle approval to allow the annual audit process to continue.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Go back to you, Councillor Gaffney, to sum up.
All of these reports will be looked at by the Audit and Risk Committee as well.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11.3 is planning permit application PP 230197 for 5 Crawford Street, Beechworth. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council issue a notice of decision to refuse to grant a permit for the use and development of 4 warehouses and a reduction of car parking requirements under clause 52.06 on the following grounds. 1, the proposed access crosses Crown land and does not have the consent of the relevant land manager. And 2, site access cannot be achieved to comply with the decision guidelines of clause 33.01-4. Do I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Gold, seconded Councillor Croucher. Councillor Gold.
Thank you. I think this is just another really frustrating situation for an applicant where their proposed development ticks the appropriate boxes as it stands with council, but they require access across Crown land, and the owner of that Crown land, DECA, will not provide consent for any development which requires an agreed or permanent access on their land. It's a tiny strip of land. We know it's currently in use. We do know from prior legal advice that it's really not appropriate that council support an application where a development is required on Crown land, and that we have been advised to refuse permits, but as best as possible support applicants in their conversations with DECA. And I hope that we might eventually have a positive resolution from this, but I do realise that this is going to take some time.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Councillor Croucher.
Yes, I'd just like to echo everything that Councillor Gold has said. Despite the proposal being consistent with the relevant requirements of the Indigo planning scheme, council cannot grant access for the proposed works on DECA land without the consent. With no legal access existing, the permit unfortunately must be refused.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
I'm just curious as to whether there could be an option to rejig the layout of this plan to make it more feasible.
So is your question to the Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg
Yes, thank
Pinkerton?
you.
Yeah, thank you. The planning team has had those discussions with the applicant. It's fairly tricky with the access where it is, but there may be some options for a different sort of layout in the future. But at this stage, the applicant has said that they'd like to stick to this layout. And so that's why we've brought it for a decision. There may be a future application, but we don't know about any of those yet.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Gaffney, you'd like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Beechworth businesses are screaming out for zoned industrial land, and state government departments refuse to give access to that land. At the last council meeting, DECA prevented access to farming land. This meeting prevents access to industrial land, and last month it was farming land. Can we advocate on behalf of the community to the state government, who should be assisting, not preventing business from proceeding and advancing? Part of this report talks about access and DECA, and it says an application to purchase portion of this water race was applied for in 2019. Native title has not been extinguished over this parcel of land, and subsequently the proposed sale stalled indefinitely. The land is not saleable under the current government policy due to a native title claim over this land, and the outcome of this claim may potentially take 4 to 5 years. We're talking about a piece of land that's about 15 metres by 13 metres. It's currently used as a driveway, although there's no permit for it to. There's a sealed crossover at the end of this land which is used. I'm just wondering why native title is on this very small patch of land. How long has that title been in place, and is any tribe using it? No one else is using it. It's just there, and I can't figure out why DECA would just stall it. Something's got to be done. And I'd like council to advocate on why this small patch of land is subject to native title and will be like that for 4 to 5 years. That's not progress, that's regress.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I think you can hear our frustration with this particular piece of land. This is a very appropriate use for this zone, and it's a piece of land that would absolutely support that use. And we're really frustrated by the fact that access can't be granted because of this native title not being extinguished over this parcel of land. And 4 to 5 years is a really long horizon, as some of the other councillors have said. So nonetheless, really the option here is only to refuse to grant the permit. I'll go back to Councillor Gold. Would you like to sum up? No, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour to refuse to grant the permit? Those against? I'll have those for the proposal again. Councillor, you're voting to refuse the permit, Councillor Horn? Councillor Horn, Croucher, Tyson, Price, Shepherd, Gold. Those against, Councillor Croucher. The motion's carried. Sorry, Councillor Gaffney. The motion is carried. Now we go to the late agenda item that has been put into the agenda at 11.3, planning permit application PP 240085 for 53 Barclay Street, Rutherglen. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council refuse the proposed development plan for a 2-lot subdivision at Barclay Street, Rutherglen on the following grounds. A, the proposal does not meet the minimum lot size requirement of 2,000 square metres as required by the low density residential zone clause 32.03. B, the proposal will negatively impact on the existing subdivision pattern and future development. C, the proposal will not be in line with the neighbourhood character for the zone subdivision. D, the proposal does not comply with the standards and objectives outlined within the Indigo planning scheme. And E, the proposal does not represent orderly planning of semi-rural residential land that will allow for the excising of the existing dwellings into sized lots. 2, that council refused to grant a planning permit for a 2-lot subdivision at Barclay Street, Rutherglen, on the following grounds. A, the proposed development is not generally in accordance with an approved development plan as required by clause 43.042, as no development plan has been approved for this site. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Gold, seconded Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gold.
Thank you. I think it's really important that, again, we respect land zoning and that we don't subdivide what we hope to be low density residential land into any higher density in the same way. We try not to subdivide farmland and that we try and keep that larger and invite people to consolidate. I think this is another example where we're really literally at a crossroads for this development. This particular lot sits in low density residential zone, and it's a very visible street frontage, reflecting the beginning of a low density zone. Across the road is high density residential zone. At some point we have to draw a line in the sand. There will always be a boundary. And in this case, it's a road, which is a very natural boundary between high and low density. The risk with subdividing this particular piece of land is that it will of itself create a mismatch with the low density residential, both its visual impact and set a precedent for all of the lots that sit behind it that will most likely come up for subdivision to meet the requirements of the low density zone as well. And that with a high density zone subdivision as their neighbour, the precedent is set that further land could also be, or developers could consider that their land could be developed and subdivided into smaller lots, which is not what we are seeking for this land. So I think it's really important that we do respect the zone, that the lot or 2 lots, one is small. It was never designed to have a building on it, judging by the size. It does have an easement. It was quite possibly designed for more a water space and drainage space than anything else. And that the ideal would be consolidation of anything of these lots rather than further subdivision.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak?
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to mention at this stage to foreshadow that if this motion fails, I'll be putting an alternate motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as seconder?
I support all that Councillor Gold has said, really. She's covered all the areas, I think, succinctly. Really, it does not represent orderly planning of the semi-rural residential land. That will allow for the excising of the existing dwellings into suitably sized lots and has not considered the wider precinct. So it does not fit into our subdivision pattern and future development, and it's under the lot size requirement. So all of the things that we've put to in our planning for that specific zone, it does not meet, which I think is pretty means that it does not fit.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, this is another difficult decision for councillors. Whilst the Victorian government has mandated to us to increase land availability and affordability, it makes it very difficult when we have lots like this which are available now in a town that really does need additional housing due to its growing population. It also fits one of the other mandated things that we seem to have at the moment, which is a lot of less than 5. So for this particular application, it's a little difficult for me, and I'll need to consider all of its options.
Thank you, councillor Tyson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney.
I could make it part of a question, but I'll certainly make it part of the debate that the recommended refusal of this proposal is not supported by the planning policy.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I think at this point, I'd just like to say that I do agree with what councillor Gold has said. We have to be seen to be completing orderly planning, and when you stand on this site and you look in every which direction, you can see all sorts of zoning and just how that works. But it is probably an appropriate boundary at this road, and so when this application comes before us, we should reflect appropriately what the zone is in this area. I'll now go back to councillor Gold. Would you like to sum up?
Could I ask you a question, Madam Mayor, now that you've come into this debate?
You can ask me a question.
Do you say that the recommended motion of this proposal is not supported by planning policy?
Repeat the question. That doesn't make sense.
That the motion that you have supported and the proposal is not supported by planning policy?
Simply because of the lot sizes that are proposed, it's inconsistent with what's required in this zone.
I just asked the question. Are you asking me another question?
That's the answer I'm giving, but if you would
There's
like
no-
any other question answered, you can ask the Director of Planning and Corporate
No,
Services.
I'm asking you. And well, there's certainly plenty in the alternate resolution.
Is this a question?
to pass this. No, I just asked
Okay.
you whether what you said is part of planning policy.
And I've given you an answer.
Oh, okay.
So I'll go back to the mover, councillor Gold. Would you like to sum up?
Yes, thank you. I think, again, just to reiterate, the proposed re-subdivision, it's not consistent with the lot size expectations of the low density residential zone. It will negatively impact on the subdivision pattern. It will certainly set a precedent which puts at risk the low density versus high density zoning and use. Yes, we do need more housing lots, but we also need them of diverse size and purpose. And our planning scheme has set out quite clearly where we want our commercial, our industrial, our residential and our farming zones and the appropriate sizing of any lots on those zones. And I do think it's important that we don't start second guessing the policy that we have in place. I think it is also quite clear that this potential, were it to go ahead, would impact on the neighbourhood character once the adjoining land is developed, and it certainly would look out of place to have two small lots in what is supposed to be a low density region. So I don't have anything more to say than that.
Thank you, councillor Gold. I'll put it to the vote that this is refused. All those in favour? Those against? So the motion is lost, but I'll just get who those were that were in favour. Was councillor Gold, Shepherd, Price. Those against was Horn, Croucher, Tysell, Gaffney. Councillor Gaffney, you foreshadowed an alternate motion should that motion have failed. What's your new motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That council approved the development plan titled Proposed Land of Subdivision 53 Barclay Street, Rutherglen, dated the 5th of June 2024 and identified as Rev A as the development plan applying to the site under clause 43042 of the Indigo planning scheme. 2, that council grant a planning permit allowing the re-subdivision of the land into 2 lots in accordance with the plan endorsed as a development plan subject to the following conditions. The conditions are endorsed plans of subdivision, crossings, mandatory conditions of subdivision permits. The owner of the land must enter into an agreement with, these are usual conditions.
There's some more headlines over the page if you'd
Yes,
like, councillor
yes,
Gaffney.
I was just having a read of that. There's the engineering, stormwater, and the permit will expire if the plan of subdivision is not certified within 2 years of the date of the permit.
Okay, so councillors, you've had this motion circulated to you. You should each have a copy. As you can see from what councillor Gaffney has read out, there are 2.5 pages of conditions. So we won't read those out other than the headings, but that motion has now been moved by councillor Gaffney. Could I have a seconder for that motion? Seconded by councillor Tyson. Councillor Gaffney. To speak to the motion, councillor Gaffney.
Oh, I thought I just had.
Your microphone's not on. So you've just read the motion, so now you need to speak to the motion.
This proposal is supported by the planning policy.
Okay, councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
I'll reserve my right.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gold.
I think, and it's been made very clear to us from the reports from the planning department that this proposed redivision does not align with the Indigo planning scheme. It does not align with the lot size for the low density residential zone. It does not fit with the low density precinct that this particular lot is the beginning of. It sets a dangerous precedent, and I find it quite appalling that councillors would go against our Indigo planning scheme and the advice of the planning department for whatever reason, when we quite clearly have a zoning overlay on this land that I do believe that we should respect.
Thank you, councillor Gold. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion?
Could I ask a question?
Councillor Gaffney, you'd like to ask a question?
So what you're saying is that we should never vote against the advice of the planning department. We're not representing the, excuse me, we're not.
No, that's the
representing
question.
planning
That's
department.
now a statement, councillor Gaffney. The question has been asked of councillor Gold. I think that question really is quite obvious. That's not a question really for this current debate. It's not a question about the item in the agenda. Of course, councillors can make a decision contrary to what the planning department has proposed. That's why we're entertaining this motion now. So I'm now going to ask, would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
We attended a site visit to look at this because I think most of us would be keen to have some more growth in the Rutherglen area, and we questioned the decision and wanted to have a look at it ourselves. And looking at it, because it's right on the roundabout, I said, well, how do they going to have access onto these property from the roundabout? And they said, well, they'll have to build it an internal access road. I said, well, how's that going to look? An access road along beside the roundabout inside? And they said, yes. And I said, well, so the extra work that has to be done with an internal access concrete road which will be at the developer's cost. It will never be owned or run by the Indigo Shire Council. So a driveway will have to be built from the right across the front. So we've got two small blocks with a access road across the front as the beginning of a whole low density residential rural area is not the look we want for the opening of that quadrant, I suppose. And I could see what they were saying when they were pointing that out. So it was something that it did change my opinion when I saw that I couldn't see how it was going to work or how it was going to look.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I suppose I'd just like to say, well, first a question to the Director of Planning and Corporate Services. is the recommendation, the previous recommendation, was that consistent with planning policy? Which is consistent with planning policy at this point? Because I was of the opinion that to be consistent with planning policy, it would have to be consistent with the lot size.
Yeah, thank you. So the report that's presented to council for the refusal is the result of the planning team looking at the application and then lining that up against the planning scheme, planning policy, and arriving at a recommendation for good orderly planning. So the refusal is more aligned to the current council's planning policy and planning scheme.
Thank you, Director. I think that, again, it's fairly obvious as you stand there on this site. You can see higher density residential zoning if you look in one particular direction, and then you can see a natural change in the zoning as you look in the other direction, as the lot sizes become bigger and move towards what would become farming land. I agree with Councillor Tysell that it's important that that we reflect the state government's priority at the moment to make more housing available, more land available. But in Rutherglen, we've got really clear strategy about where the growth for the town should be. And we are entertaining a lot of different subdivision proposals for those towns time and time again. So I think that to make a decision that is inconsistent with our planning policy to achieve a couple more lots that would then create something that's inconsistent with the neighbourhood character of the zone is not good planning decision, not a good planning decision at all, and not consistent when, as I say, there's really deliberate growth areas planned for Rutherglen that we can see being developed in the appropriate zoning. I'll go back to Councillor Tysell. You reserved your right.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I don't find it disrespectful necessarily to disagree with planning. I understand there's a lot of hard work goes into forward planning and the structures and things that we have. But I have to also deal with each issue as it arrives in front of me as a councillor, independent of that particular process.
Councillor Gaffney, would you like to sum up?
It's unfortunate that Councillor Shepherd referred to this as low density rural property. It's certainly not that, and that's not the proposal at all. I'm a bit sorry, Madam Mayor, that you've got that point of view. And I was at that site visit. I don't remember any of that having to put in another road. That's not part of the conditions that were in the original. So all I can say is that this is a worthwhile thing. It's allowed to under the Act. It fits in with planning policy.
Can we just confirm, is that part of the conditions or not, access to the Director of Planning and Corporate Services?
Yeah, I'm just looking to find the best page. Page 3 has a page 3 of the separate attachment shows that there's a carriageway easement on lot 1, on the front of lot 1. There's a carriageway easement leading to a driveway to access the building envelope of lot 2. Hopefully you can see that on the.
So that would be required.
Yeah, otherwise there wouldn't be a legal entry into lot 2 because it would feed straight into the roundabout, which would be quite dangerous. So it is required to go through the front of lot 1 to get to lot 2.
And in the motion that they're currently looking at as part of the engineering conditions 5, a road built as a common property access or carriageway easement will not be supervised during construction by Indigo Shire Council, does not become a council asset, will not be maintained by council. So it does imply that a road would be built. Okay, I'll put it to the vote.
I'd just like to answer that, Madam Mayor.
Answer what?
What you just said. The alternate resolution that I put was put by the Indigo Shire Council Planning Department. So if you're saying that they're wrong.
No suggestion was made. The suggestion was that you were wrong, that a road did need to be built, not that the planning department were wrong. Okay, so we're all understanding now that we are looking at this motion, which is to approve the development plan for 53 Barclay Street, Rutherglen. So I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? The motion's carried. For the minutes, can I get who was in favour? Councillor Horn, Croucher, Tice or Gaffney. Those against? Price, Shepherd, Gold. The motion is carried. Item 12 is Community and Economic Development, and item 12.1 is the Stanley Community Resilience Plan. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council endorses the final Stanley Community Resilience Plan. Do I have somebody to move that motion? Moved, Councillor Tyson, seconded Councillor Croucher. Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, just another great example of council working with a community, a very engaged and a very passionate community. And one of the things that really came out of this is that the community are the drivers for this plan and that they are very resilient and they are looking forward to working towards a very bright and promising future.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Councillor Croucher.
Yeah, extensive consultation with the Stanley community has resulted in strong support for the final Stanley Community Resilience Plan and therefore council's endorsement.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
This community has been very forthright in their commitment to what they want to see happen in their community. And I think this is a very, very positive step forward. And I think it's a really, really worthwhile plan that everybody can get behind and feel part of.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Councillor Shepherd.
Both with this and the next one, which is endorsing the Barnawatha and Surrounds Community Resilient Plan, I'm interested in how these actions, like this one in particular, has a priority of actions: a walking cycle connectivity to Beechworth, grow a vibrant town centre, ensure water security, independent, reliable energy, and showcase the Spring Ditch wetlands. So those 5 things are quite pointed. I'm wondering how they will be taken on into the future with the next council in terms of priorities in the council plan. And if I could ask you, the community, Director of Communities, Director of Community and Economic Development. Thank you, Sally Rice.
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor. The council officers will recommend that both of these resilience plans be included and referenced in the new council plan that'll be developed with the new councillors.
Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gold.
I think similarly, it's great to see communities get so involved in determining and visioning their own future. And I think building on the fact that this plan now becomes adopted, assuming it's voted for, becomes part of the overarching council plan, it becomes a really strong document for directing further activity in Stanley and also being a useful resource for funding applications in the future and a really critical element for those success. So commend the community on all the work they've done with council officers in pulling this together.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tyson, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, just a very similar point to Councillor Shepherd. In the next plan as well, cycling connectivity is still very important to our communities, especially for those that don't have very good cycling connectivity, Barnawatha and Stanley. So it is still an issue and it's still a want in our communities.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12.2 is Barnawatha and Surrounds Community Resilience Plan. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council endorses the Barnawatha and Surrounds Community Resilience Plan. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved, Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Gold. Councillor Shepherd.
Again, a similar process was conducted in Barnawartha and surrounds with engagement of the community in all sorts of different ways. So we can feel confident that that engagement was strong, and many of the community had a say, and that they also have come up with top 3 priorities, which makes sense when you think about down at Barnawartha: invest in youth recreation activities, revitalise the railway precinct, and design walking and cycle connectivity to Yakandanda and Chiltern. So they're the 3 things that I imagine are going to become top priorities in a council plan for the future. So, yeah, great to be able to endorse this document and this community's wants.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gold, you would like to speak as seconder?
Yeah, thank you. I think similarly to the Stanley Resilience Plan, it was great to have so much community engagement and opportunity for the community and surrounds to input into this plan. I think it's also worth noting that Barnawartha, as does many of our communities, have fairly close proximity to neighbouring shires, and that in this instance, Wodonga Shire may have plans for land that borders Indigo Shire and may or may not impact on Barnawartha. It's worth noting that people in Indigo Shire, as anyone can put submissions into Wodonga Council in support or as a complaint to any development across our borders. The 2 shires do endeavour to work really well together, and we've certainly had conversations in the past to make sure there is perhaps a common approach or address shared interests, particularly with traffic flow and visual amenity. And I think it's worth just acknowledging that Barnawartha is very well placed to leverage development in Wodonga as well, and vice versa. It's great to have another document sets forward a really clear vision that can be leveraged for funding for that community in the directions that they want to develop.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn?
It's interesting to note that the birth rates in both Stanley and Barnawartha have improved and increased. And the Logic Centre being at Barnawartha North is of course of great concern to everybody in the development of all these projects. And that is why it's very important for the communities to have a strong voice in these discussions about what's happening in adjoining councils. And as noted by my colleagues, the importance of actually having a say and putting in a submission if there's concerns about impinging territories and projects.
Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Gaffney.
It's interesting that throughout the consultation process, key themes emerge strongly as areas of focus. 1, safe, connected and empowered communities. 2, investment in recreation and destination. And 3, sustainable planning for community and economy.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd, would you like to sum up?
Yes, I'd like to thank the Community and Economic Development Department, because we were struggling a while ago as to how we could include Stanley and Barnawartha in a plan, and in them having an opportunity to do their own community planning. We didn't have the funding for it, nor do we have the capacity. They're both small communities. And they were able to find funding for this resilience planning, which really is another name for the same sort of thing we've been doing with the larger communities, getting them together, getting them to focus on what their future plans were. And of course, that leads to resilience in communities. So I'd just like to thank them for hearing our need to speak with those communities and get a plan, some future planning from them on how they wanted their community to develop, and being able to then go ahead and make that happen. So, yeah, I'm really happy that they listened to us and were able to make that work. And I imagine the communities would be very happy too to have that plan now in front of them with some clear ways to move ahead.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12.3 is the Tiny Towns Fund Round 2 applications. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 endorses applications to Round 2 of the Tiny Towns Fund for the following projects: refurbishment of the Rutherglen Maternal and Child Health Clinic and beautification of the Barnawartha streetscape. And 2, notes that pending a successful applications council's contribution in future budgets is $20,000 for the refurbishment of the Rutherglen MCH clinic and $15,000 for the beautification of the Barnawartha streetscape. Do I have somebody to move that motion? Moved councillor Croucher, seconded councillor Horn. Councillor Croucher.
Yeah, what a wonderful opportunity for the Tiny Towns funding is for various communities in our shire. I noticed the Keewar Cricket Club received this funding for an oval fence in round 1, and the fruits of this grant are now being seen with the fence well on its way. With this in mind, I would like to endorse applications to round 2 for Rutherglen's Maternal Child and Health Clinic and the beautification of the Barnawartha streetscape.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Councillor Horn.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I fully condone what councillor Croucher has said.
Thank you, councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to motion? No. Councillor Croucher, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12.4 is community grants for 2024-25. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council distributes $50,792 in the 2024-25 Indigo Shire Community Grants Program as follows. And there are a complete page of organisations listed with the projects that they've put forward and the recommended funding allocations, which, as I said, totals $50,792. And item 2 is thanks the Indigo Shire Community Grants and Awards Advisory Committee for its voluntary time in reviewing and assessing the applications. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved councillor Croucher, seconded councillor Tyson. Councillor Croucher.
Yes, I was the chairman of this committee when this took place, who comprehensively reviewed all the applications for the community grants. With a variety of groups across the Shire applying for grants, it was great to see the funding available being spread over different parts of the Shire for a variety of different projects. I would like to thank the committee, comprising of volunteers from all parts of the Shire, for their wonderful input in making the community grants program such a successful venture throughout the Shire.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, I also would like to thank our volunteers that come along and sit on these committees. They're unpaid. And even though they're well chaired, and I'd like to say that it's a lot of money going back into our communities to a lot of organisations that work very hard within them, and it's well deserved.
Thank you, councillor Tyson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I think we'd all agree that $50,000 of council money spent is probably doubled by all of these organisations in the community. So it's really pleasing to be able to see such a long list of them. We know that these are all community groups that do a lot of great work, and if we can support them with small amounts of money to achieve small projects, then I think that's a really good use of ratepayer money. Councillor Crouch, I'll go back to you. Would you like to sum up?
Just one other point. Living in a small community, I'm fully aware of the people who go for these grants. They're just so appreciative of this sort of thing, and I think it's just a wonderful thing that the Shire does for us.
Thank you, councillor Crouch. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12.5 is the Event Grants Program 2024-25. Councillor Horn, you'd like to declare a conflict of interest?
Yes, I would. I'd leave the room.
Councillor Horn, would you like to read out your conflict of interest?
Oh, beg your pardon. Where is it? I have a general conflict of interest in this item, so I will leave the room.
Because
Uh,
you've turned your microphone off again.
Because I'm a committee member of Rotary Club of Brotherglen.
Thank you, councillor Horn. Okay, so the item is for decision. The recommendation is that council one distributes $60,276 in the 2024-25 Indigo Shire event grants program as follows. And again, there's a page worth of applicants, events, and the recommended allocation. This time they've got column numbers, so I can tell you there are 25 events that would be funded in total, again, to a value of $60,276. And item 2 is to thank the event grants assessment panel. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved councillor Gold, seconded councillor Gaffney. Councillor Gold.
Thank you. I think this is another wonderful example where we've got a grants committee that put in a lot of time and effort to assess some very competitive applications. I sort of note that there were 33 applications in total. 25 of those will receive full or part funding. I think this is another opportunity where council can play a financial role in supporting events that have a much greater economic and social benefit to a community than just the dollar value. I think it's excellent to see so many events being planned across our year and across the Shire. And it's wonderful to see that the Shire, in a financial way, in addition to in-kind support that it offers, can enable some of these groups with the funding they required to stage events.
Thank you, councillor Gold. Councillor Gaffney.
$60,000 was spent on these events. Most of them are between $1,000 and $1,500, not a great deal, but it gives Christmas lunch to a number of people who are in need. And there's events there for children, there's events there for the elderly. It's just really, really good that that this money can be spent in this way. I'd just like to add that I'm a member of this committee with Councillor Croucher.
Thank you, councillor Gaffney. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Croucher.
I'll just briefly say this different to the community grants. This is another wonderful opportunity for our constituents to apply for a grant to assist in the actually running of an event. Again, the funding was spread across the Shire, and congratulations to a different sort of committee who followed all the protocols in deciding upon the worthy applicants.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Okay, are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to councillor Gold. Would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Could someone please get councillor Horn back into the room? Item 13 is infrastructure services. And item 13.1 is the Community Sustainability Grants Program for 2024-25. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council endorses the allocation of $19,332, excluding GST, via the 2024-25 Community Sustainability Grants Program to the applicants as set out below. There are 3 applicants. Again, the total amount is $19,332. Could I have somebody to move that motion? Moved councillor Shepherd, seconded councillor Gold. Councillor Shepherd.
So this program came 7 years ago. We had, I think it was Waganya wanted to reduce community centre, the sports centre wanted to reduce their energy. We're looking at how to put solar panels on. We talked about how we were able to assist community groups. And so we started off with our first community facilities energy upgrade grants. And this is the 7th year, and it provides financial assistance to community groups and organisations to implement and build capacity for renewable energy, energy efficiency, biodiversity and climate change related projects. And the 3 that are receiving the money this year are Shining the Light on Rutherglen Tennis, $10,000, and they are changing their lights to low density, well, I just got to remember LED lights. And then the next one is Osborne Flat Community Centre, which are changing their gas heaters to electric, which will help now that they've also got solar panels and batteries, so that will all fit nicely. And then Bulls, the Beechworth and Urban Land Care and Sustainability group are looking to work with Indigo Shire in spending their money to do some works around improving waterway health and restoring natural habitat in Beechworth. So all 3 of them very worthy funding bodies, funding groups, community groups, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gold, would you like to speak a second now?
I think again, just thanking all applicants. Not everybody is successful. It doesn't preclude anybody resubmitting for grant rounds in the future. And in fact, it would be great to see this particular community sustainability grant round increase over time. It's very much aligned with Council's policy and our climate action strategies. It is great to see really diverse projects and projects that will be delivered across the Shire. And again, commend the grants committees and council officers that go to the work of assessing these applications and providing us with a really solid assessment process.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd, would you like to sum up? Sorry, actually, before I invite you to sum up, I'd just say we've got 3 grants programs that we've received tonight. And I think it's just a really good demonstration from council of what good process around grant programs can look like, to have them received at a consistent time, to make sure that there's really clear grant guidelines around how this money is distributed, and to continue to place value in spending this money in the community. So I'm just really pleased to see all of these applications and projects receive funding, and to the new council, they might be welcomed out to see some of these projects or see some of the events take place. And it's nice to see all of that take place. So again, Councillor Shepherd, you don't wish to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 13.2 is the proposed sale of land, Michelle Drive, Kiwa. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 agrees to the discontinuance of 369 square metres of land from the road reserve on Michelle Drive, Kiwa, and the intended sale of this piece of land to the owner of 80 Michelle Drive for $2,160. 2, notes a public notice will be published advising of council's intention to both discontinue the section of road and to sell the land to the adjacent landowner, and that submissions will be received from the public for a period of 28 days. And 3, notes that a further report will be provided to council following the public notice period unless no objection are received, in which event officers will proceed with the formal process required for the road discontinuance and sale of land. Do I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Tyson, seconded Councillor Croucher. Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, just a really common sense approach to a problem, and it's great to see that this will actually add to public safety as well.
Thanks, Councillor Tyson. Councillor Croucher.
Yes, we had a bit of a site visit down this area earlier in the year, and I think the conclusion in the report sums it up really well, is that the angled boundary at the end of Michelle Drive is not ideal for the landowner at the end of the road. The sale of the triangular piece of land to square up the end makes sense and is not required for road purposes.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
I just think if this was a planning matter, that little bit at the end would not say it makes sense. There'd be a whole lot of little A's and B's and C's and D's. I just love that this is an infrastructure report, and so it just ends with it makes sense.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tyson, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 13.3 is contract number 2324-00302 sealed pavement rehabilitation, Kigunya Road. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 awards contract number 2324-00302 sealed pavement rehabilitation, Kigunya Road to Highway Oz Proprietary Limited for the amount of $598,196.07, excluding GST. 2, authorises the CEO to sign and seal the contract documents, and 3, authorises the CEO the financial delegation to approve contract variations up to a total of 10% of the signed contract value. Do I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Croucher, seconded Councillor Gaffney. Councillor Croucher.
Well, again, I live in the area. This is a wonderful, wonderful for the people of Kigunya and surrounding areas. I've travelled on this piece of road numerous times. In fact, I went on it yesterday, and there are multiple sections that really need regular attention. So this will be absolutely fantastic. It is therefore my pleasure to endorse this recommendation to award the contract and authorise the CEO to sign and seal the contract documents.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Councillor Gaffney.
One of the worst roads in Indigo Shire, and I'm pleased that the contract's gone to an experienced contractor at a very competitive price.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Croucher, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 13.4 is contract number 2425-012 Bridge and Culvert Upgrade, Burraman East Road, Norong. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 awards contract number 2425-012 Bridge and Culvert Upgrade, Burraman East Road to Murray Valley Piling for the amount of $655,000, excluding GST. 2, authorises the CEO to sign and seal the contract documents. 3, authorises the CEO the financial delegation to approve contract variations up to a total of 10% of the signed contract value. And 4, notes that additional funding has been requested from the Australian Government's Bridges Renewal Program to help cover additional costs, and that balancing funds will be required from the 2024-25 Bridges Renewal budget to support this project. Do I have somebody to move this motion? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Shepherd.
It's not very often that you read in a report that the tender was non-conforming, but it's still the one we've chosen, as it proposed an alternative solution to that specified. It was also the cheapest tender received, and the panel assisted as providing the best overall outcome for council. The alternative submission offers to remove the existing undercapacity U-slab bridge and associated flood relief culverts and replace these with a new 18 metre by 8 metre composite steel beam reinforced concrete deck bridge. So it sounds like the alternative plan is the one that's going to be the most efficient and the most effective and cost effective as well. So that's that's great that this particular group have Murray Valley Piling has scored the highest across the evaluation criteria and provide a well-considered optimal solution with a very experienced contractor at a very competitive price. Sounds great.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yeah, another example of council working with their contractors to come up with a better alternative for the community and a safer one.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd, would you like to sum up? Put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14 is executive management and item 14.1 is advisory committee minutes. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council receives the attached unconfirmed meeting minutes for the following advisory committees. 1, Indigo Shire Community Grants and Awards Advisory Committee minutes. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Tyson, seconded Councillor Gaffney. Councillor Tyson.
Once again, I'd just like to thank the people that come along and volunteer their time on these committees and tell them that it's really a worthwhile thing and that they're appreciated by council.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Councillor Gaffney.
A very functional committee. They always come to a conclusion by consensus. You never hear a crossword. A number of them have conflicts of interest. They declare them straight away out and then back for the next item. It's a very, very excellent committee.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tyson, would you like to sum up? Put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.2 is informal meetings of councillors' records. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council accepts the attached informal meetings of councillors' records. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Gaffney. Seconded Councillor Croucher. Councillor Gaffney.
No, thanks, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Croucher. Nothing. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.3 is contracts awarded under CEO delegation for August 2024. There were no contracts awarded. The item is for information. There were no contracts awarded by the CEO under delegation between the values of 250,000 and 500,000 for the month of August 2024. Item 15 is notices of motion and there are none. Item 16 is councillors' reports. Councillor Horn, you'd like to make a report to the meeting?
Yes, I would. Councillor Croucher and I had the great pleasure of attending a whole of school production at the Rutherglen Junior School last week, and it was absolutely sensational. I just would like to congratulate everybody connected with this event. It's a production that's been supported for, I think, the last 26 years by the Royal Children's Hospital down in Melbourne. And this is the last of those presentations, unfortunately. But to see the energy and the excitement and the huge commitment to the environment that these children were expressing in all different musical and activities that they were performing. And just, it was electric. It was totally electric, and they're to be congratulated.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Councillor Crouch, you'd like to make a report to the council meeting?
We would. Deputy Mayor Gaffney and myself had the privilege, and their CEO was there too, had the privilege to attend and celebrate the upgrade of the Kaganya Hall on Sunday. There was over 100 people there to join in the enjoyment of this brand new facility. And congratulations to the Hall Committee on their persistence, and also to the Council for their perseverance, particularly during the difficult times when the upgrade was touted, and that was during the COVID period. Kaganya is a great community and deserves to have a facility upgrade like this, and the community look forward to attending many functions in the future at this updated Kaganya Memorial Hall.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. And I think you'd like to say
Yes,
one more thing tonight,
I'd like to
Councillor
say one
Croucher.
more thing. To the people of Indigo Shire, this is my last meeting as a councillor, and I would like to thank the people of Indigo Shire for their support and friendship during the 12 years as your councillor. I have enjoyed myself as being your representative, but feel now is the time to hang up the boots and continue further into my music, my lawn bowling prowess, and serve the community as a member of Lions. I'd like to wish the new council all the best in the decision making and reiterate we live in a wonderful part of the country and truly believe we will continue to be in good hands with the current Indigo Shire Council.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. I think we could give you a round of applause. And I think we'll all miss you saying, my name's Peter Croucher and I'm from a little place called Tangambalenga.
You read it very well.
But it will mean that we'll keep that front of mind, and the new council will in their new term as well. Councillor Gold, would you also like to say anything at this stage?
Only very briefly, I can't come close to Peter's 12 years, but I have had the privilege of being a councillor for 12 months. It has been an absolute joy getting to know everyone. I do appreciate our debates and differences of opinion on occasion, but I think we are united in wanting the best for our community, and we bring what we can to this forum to represent the community as best we can. And I also wish well for the next council, and we'll certainly be watching, but from a different seat.
And again, Councillor Gold, I think that it's been really useful to have your input over the last 12 months. I think that it provides a really interesting moment to receive councillors because of a count back during a council term. I think you can get very comfortable with the way that we all operate and the questions that we ask, and it's been useful to have 2 additions during that term to sort of make you reconsider the questions that you ask and the different ways of thinking about each item, and you've certainly brought that to the table. So thank you very much for your contribution. Another round of applause, surely. Item 16, but would any other councillor like to make a report to the meeting? No. Item 16.1 is the Mayor's Diary for August 2024. The item is for information, and there's a list of the functions, events and meetings for August 2024. Item 17 is the decisions register. Again, that's for information. And item 18 is general business. Councillor Horn, you've got an item for general business.
Yes, I do. Anybody who has looked at social media will see in Rutherglen that we have a great ongoing problem with letting the community know what's going on in our town. At the moment, we have some roadworks that are being done in Killins Lane in Rutherglen. I would just like to ask, please, for Director Infrastructure Service Ian Ellett, if he could just give us a rundown of what's going on at the moment.
So before I do that, Councillor Horn, can I just be clear about what you're asking about? Because I think what you're referring to is something that regards a developer, the EPA council to a much lesser extent. But what is your question for general business for the director, so that we can be really clear about what the ask is?
The ask is that the community of Rutherglen would like to know about the what the operations in Killins Lane in regard to the amenity of using that area for running, exercising and access to their buildings, etc.
So again, Councillor Horn, I'm still very unclear about exactly what the question is to the director. I think that councillors are very aware of developer activities in that area. But that's a very, very loose question for general business about amenity and about something about running, or I'm really unclear as to what your question is for general business, and I'll give you one more opportunity to probably make that a bit more concise so we can understand, and so that I know exactly what we're asking the director.
The community would like to know what's going on in that regards to the works in that street that's going to impact their enjoyment of that and access to that land, please.
No clearer in my mind. To the Director of Infrastructure Services, Ian Ellett, I'm not sure what the answer that I'm expecting, but if you have any understanding of what might be an appropriate update, no, the CEO would like to chime in.
So can I just echo the Mayor and the Chair of the meeting? There is a subdivision going on there. There are some works being done on site. Council has a role in overseeing those works. And I think we just leave it there. I can't make anything specific out of that question. I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to respond. And perhaps a follow-up email, perhaps post the meeting, if we could clarify what that question is. But from a general business point of view, it's such a general question that the director's answer could go in any direction and be unfocused.
Okay, is there any other item for general business for the council meeting? No? Okay. Now we do have a confidential item tonight. And so Section 66 of the Local Government Act 2020 states that a council or delegated committee must keep a meeting open to the public unless the council or delegated committee considers it necessary to close the meeting. The circumstances are listed there. I now need to ask for a recommendation that the council meeting be closed to public in accordance with Section 66 of the Local Government Act 2020. That motion is moved by Councillor Gaffney, seconded by Councillor Tyson. Can I put it to the vote? All those in favour? Carried unanimously. We will now move into confidential session. This may just take a little moment. So the meeting has now moved out of confidential, and we'd like to declare the meeting closed at 8:26 p.m. And there's an additional council meeting being held on Tuesday, the 22nd of October, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Thank you.